Hey, welcome on in. As always, we are super excited to have a guest. We always love having guests here. We look for the wisdom that comes from other people so that we can learn. So, welcome on in, Vanessa. And I'll actually let you just go with it and tell us who you are and what you're taking us through today.
Thank you so much, Shiro. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Vanessa Martin. I am a certified menstrual cycle coach, and I work with women in one on one coachings just to support them to basically get to know their own cycle and learn about their own hormones. And I also offer corporate workshops. So I go into companies, do workshops about the cycle and also how this is related with actually our work structure. So, how we can influence energy wise, and I also am always happy to be a guest on podcasts. I prepare events, just, I guess, spreading the word about menstrual cycle health.
This is really good. And I want to start with something that I think some of our guests have felt just by hearing the title, menstrual cycle. Ah!
It's
Why
always
does
a
it
taboo
have,
topic.
yeah, but why does it have such a negative connotation? Menstruation, even the word seems very heavy. Do you have any views on that?
It's actually I never asked the why it seems so heavy. I just know people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it has always been kind of, I mean, period blood has always had this like negative connotation, right? It
Yeah.
always seemed like it's dirty blood. And there wasn't just much, or there wasn't really any research going into it. And I think the female cycle just got a bit neglected in a lot of ways. If you think about medication, it has
Yeah.
always been tested on men because they're the more stable test subject. So I
Interesting.
think because it has never been really talked about, and then it has always that negative connotation, those like associations. Oh, she's just on her period, she's just PMSing. You always had this like negative vibe to it. And that's how I think it is implemented.
Yeah. I have a conspiracy theory.
I love to hear that.
My conspiracy theory is that this is something that plays into patriarchy. Because if women think of themselves as dirty every so often in the month, they feel that there's something wrong with them because they are going through this horrible thing that is other. And the patriarchy has the man as the base. Everyone should be a man. So then, as the woman, you're the other and you're dirty because you go through this. And then it's something that we just take in. And then we ourselves start feeling that there is something wrong with it. It's just this messaging that we get within ourselves. And before we know it, we think of that time of the month as horrible, terrible. Yeah, that's my conspiracy theory.
Honestly, I think there's much truth to it. And I mean, if we look at honestly, I mean, if we look at how our society is structured, right? We have those like 9 to 5 jobs. Like you have to perform every day the same. It's always the same because it's in accordance with the male cycle and not with the female cycle. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Sorry, go on.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's start there. Because I really like that. I heard about it at some point, the idea of the male cycle, because that blew my mind. And I thought, do men have a cycle? The 9 to 5 job. Just put a bit more emphasis on that topic.
They definitely do. I mean, hormones affect both men and women, or all genders basically, and there's different hormones. We have, of course, the hormones that affect the circadian rhythm. That means that we wake up in the morning and kind of get tired in the evening. That's, of course, like that we both have. But what is very interesting that even if men and women have the same hormones, even sexual hormones, there's just different levels of it. So men are way more.
Hmm.
Yeah, do you have a question for that?
No. I'm just surprised. Okay. I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
that it's the level that's the difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because even men, they have estrogen, they have also like LH and FSH, like hormones that are very important for the female cycle. They have this, but in way lower doses. And what is so interesting that men have just way more testosterone, and that's their main driver, kind of. And it works in a way that testosterone is high or peaks in the morning, depending on like the person, but around like 5 to 7 a.m. So when they wake up, this is when they have the highest energy, the most like, yeah, I would say energy just to start the day. So also amazing for maybe do a workout, maybe like be productive, go to work. And
Ah,
then they have this kind of gradually decrease throughout the day, still having like a pretty peak in the morning. I mean, I remember it's really funny. One of my old bosses, he kept telling me, do your like acquire new clients in the early day. Don't do it in the afternoon because people will be busy. And then I realized, well, because that's how you function. So they have their peak in the morning and then it gradually decreases and they hit their lowest point in the evening between like 8-10 p.m.-ish kind of. And then overnight it rises again. So this is how they have this daily cycle and how testosterone affects them so much. And if you spread this, if you imagine like a little graph, like going up and down, and if you then spread this over a month, then you see it just goes up and down the whole time, but it's basically the same. Yeah.
You just made me realize something. I read when I was writing my book, Date Like Cleopatra. I had read a book that said that it's best to write in the morning.
Well,
You've just
there
brought
you
it
go.
home. It was written by a man, yes.
Because that's
Oh,
when
wow.
testosterone peaks. That's when also cortisol peaks, also for women, because cortisol lets us wake up, which is good. But then, of course, testosterone is just has such a bigger influence in men than it
Okay.
does in women.
Now, I want to bring you back a little bit because you're throwing in a lot of words and hormones.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's fine. Cortisol is that the stress hormone?
It's one
What
of
is
the stress hormones.
okay?
But cortisol naturally peaks also in the morning. Like it gets triggered by also daylight. That's how
Ah,
people back then used to wake up when the sun rises. Your cortisol level rises. That's how you wake up. And then when it gets dark, cortisol kind of like decreases as well. And then melatonin, your sleep hormone, kind of comes in. That's
yes.
why they also say like your sleep can get disrupted if you have too many blue light screen time, like being on your phone, your laptop, watching TV in the evening, because it disrupts your natural cycle.
Uh-huh. Okay. And you mentioned also because you've talked about testosterone, that's the male hormone. I don't know if I got it right. Estrogen, I remember, but you said LFH and LSH. Was it?
Yes. So if I speak about the main female hormones, I would say we have two big ones that are important. That's estrogen and progesterone.
Okay.
Estrogen naturally rises in the first half and then peaks right before ovulation. And after that, it decreases, and then progesterone takes over. That's your
This is the
like your
first
hormone of
half
the
of the cycle.
second half of the cycle. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes. So if we look at the cycle, your day one, so your cycle starts with your first day of your full bleed. This is
Okay.
when your hormones are the lowest. And honestly, back then I thought my period is just that's basically it. There's not much more about it. But like the menstrual cycle, it's so much more. Your period is just part of it.
Okay.
And it starts with a period where your hormones are lowest naturally. And then estrogen starts to rise, like I mentioned, peaks right before ovulation. And then after ovulation happens, progesterone comes in, which is more of the calming hormone. Lets you calm your mind, but also your body, actually, like your muscles calm down. That's why, for example, yeah, you have a question for that?
No, I was just going to, for me, trying to put this in numbers. If someone has like a 28-day cycle,
Mm-hmm.
then what like when does the ovulation take place roughly? As in, how does all this come
So
together?
the 28-day cycle is always the good like average people use. So if we would take this average, you could say on average it is on day 14 where your ovulation happens, but
Okay.
this can vary. So with that being said, any cycles between 21 and 35 days are completely healthy and normal.
Aha, okay.
So
Okay,
with
good
that,
to
it
know.
just varies. And if we take that 28-day cycle and say, let's say ovulation is in the middle, so day 14, you have the first half, your estrogen is rising, second half, progesterone comes in taking over. And if we come back to these other hormones that I mentioned before, which is LH, it stands for luteinizing hormone. This is the hormone that is kind of in charge for releasing the egg. So
Okay.
once estrogen has hit like a certain level, this is a signal to the body, okay, now it's time. And then you'll have a peak of like LH, and then it decreases again right after ovulation. It's just
Okay.
for that event to happen. And the other hormone, FSH, is for follicle stimulating hormone. That is just there to stimulate the follicles in your ovaries to kind of prepare for the ovulation.
Okay. So I'm the slow student in the back. So You said that during the first half of the cycle, your
Mhm.
energy is going up, and during the second half, your energy is going down. Is that right?
Yes and no. So technically, let's put it this way. Like technically your estrogen brings energy with you. Yes.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say this is how it is because everybody's individual and everyone,
Yes.
experiences an individual. So it's hard to put it into like say this is how it is, definitely. But with that rise of estrogen, your natural energy does increase. Also,
Okay.
your libido might increase, your confidence. Because if we look at why we have this menstrual cycle, it's to reproduce, right? That's the whole point of it. And with that being more energetic, outgoing, it's like kind of looking for that partner. That's where that energy comes in, like you're getting into the vibe. Um, and then after ovulation has happened, estrogen decreases, so you might have like this dip in energy. And then with progesterone is also compared to the pregnancy hormone. It is there to kind of protect, to like retreat, just like be for yourself and prepare. And either your body prepares for pregnancy, and if it didn't happen, it just prepares for the next cycle.
Okay. I love that explanation. Why? Because it is simple. It is simple and clear. I have been I've been one of those people who has never had much of an interest in my cycle. In fact, it's something that has just come back to me fairly more recently. So I've been on birth control for quite some time, and because of that, I was unbothered because for me it was something that wasn't really there, and also because of it had never really been steady. So I mean, it was really a non-issue. So when you talk about how the what you're meant to feel, so I like the disclaimer that you gave that it's not necessarily the same for everybody. Yeah. But what I have been doing more recently is trying to figure it out, trying to see why, trying to track what I'm feeling at different times. Because now I do understand that there might be something more than me just feeling crazy. There might be something else at play. Then, if I can see a pattern, then that is somewhat helpful.
You were definitely not crazy. Let's just put that first. Let's just say that. And those shifts are affecting us more than we actually know. So, and then if we never speak about it, then how should we know? The doctor doesn't tell us. My mom didn't tell me because she didn't know, because her mom didn't tell us. So it's like a whole like ripple effect kind of.
Yes.
So yeah, once we start talking about it, and amazing that you started tracking. I would love to know what you also kind of noticed in yourself.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. But the thing that one of the things that I've allowed myself to do is because before I only used to track like pain
Mm-hmm.
or whether or not the period has happened. So now what I've started doing more and more is trying to track my moods. And then now from there to be able to see, because sometimes I have these like really huge hunger pangs, and I'm like, why? I've just eaten. So now it's just hit me that perhaps this is also connected to the cycle. So I'll need to get back to you on that one, but just to see, does this happen at a particular period in time? And maybe it's my body telling me something. I don't have to be harsh to myself if my body wants to eat. Just to give it food, it's fine. Then maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll be fine. So that conscientiousness is something I'm trying to bring forward.
But that's amazing because I think we just never been taught how to listen to our body. Because if you
Mm,
think about our body cannot speak, right? It cannot tell us, "Hey, I'm hungry." We have to. We notice that by our tummy maybe like making some sounds. So all those symptoms that we have, we just never learned how to kind of decipher them, I guess.
mm.
And actually, if you realize that okay, you have this like more like an increased hunger, it actually there's a reason behind it because in the second half of your cycle with that rise of progesterone, your metabolism also increases, which means you actually have like a higher need of calorie intake from 200 to 300 calories. Your body wants more, it needs more, and that's give you
Wow.
that. It's totally good, man.
Amazing. Cool. I should apologize to my body for having been too harsh to it. Yeah, yeah. But tell me this, let's take this into the workplace now. Because
Mm-hmm.
yes, the man has his 24-hour cycle. We have our you said 21 to 35 more or less day
35.
cycle,
Let's say 28 as an average, but yeah,
28 as an
for the
average.
monthly. Yeah.
What do we do? How do we fit this into the workplace that we have today. I don't know if I'm saying that too broadly.
No, but I think I know what you mean. If not, just interrupt me and tell me
Yep.
I'm going the wrong way. But there's a lot of things you can do. I think the first thing that is super important is that we start speaking about it. You know,
Mm.
I spoke to so many women, and whenever they had period cramps, they just said they were sick, but didn't say why because they felt uncomfortable sharing. And I'm not saying you have to share every little detail. Hey, I'm bloated today, things like this. No, but like speaking about it and just being aware, and not like that goes for all genders. It's interesting for all genders because every male person has maybe a partner that's female, has maybe a child, has maybe friends in his
Mm.
circle. So it does affect everybody in a way. And if we bring this to the workplace, saying speak about it, let's be like just open to it, and also like spreading awareness and having knowledge what is going on. That, for example, with that like low level of hormones during your menstruation, if you compare to the male cycle, this would kind of be like their evening, like, their lowest testosterone, so 8 to 10 p.m. And would they feel like acquiring clients or going on like doing work things? No, they want to relax, be at home, maybe be cozy, eat something nice. And this is how we can compare. And if we are just aware of those things, I'm not saying change the whole work structure because that's just impossible right now. Let's see how it will change, but just having awareness for this, maybe saying, just including more home office days during those times. Like if
Mm.
you need it, or if you have maybe certain works that don't have a deadline or don't have like a more flexible deadline, maybe put those off for another period or like another time in your month, just so you can plan yourself. So
That's
just
really
implementing
good. Yeah.
those things.
That's really good. But I wonder if we need to step a little more on the first part, on the awareness, because I do feel like for myself anyway, it's not something that I could ever really think about because the workplace is the way it is. I would beat myself up for feeling like I don't feel like working. It wasn't so much that I wouldn't. It was my fault. So how do we bring an awareness to the individual that there's nothing wrong with being on your cycle?
I think that's what you said. It's your fault. You said it yourself. It's your fault, but I don't think so. It's just how we have been taught and how we speak about it, that still to this day, like, so many negative comments are made about it, and it just still has this dirty aspect. I've seen news where some celebrities, she just bled on her like skirt and she posted it because she said, like, yeah, it happens. It has happened to so many people, and there were so many negative comments how gross it is. And it's like, if you would cut your finger and bleed on your shirt, would you think it's gross? No.
Yeah.
So there's still this like very negative connection with period blood and the whole thing around it, I guess, that I think the more we speak about and the more just people know, like, knowledge has so much power in this, saying, I myself as an individual understand what is going on with me. Like you said, I'm not going crazy. It's just, it is my hormones and it's natural. And if I understand it, I can actually work with it and improve and see what I really need. Because there's always an underlying reason for it. But then also, maybe if some colleagues have made stupid comments about it, that they realize, oh, maybe they're going through a lot, or maybe it's just different, or I just don't comment it. Or maybe I can ask, hey, can I help you with this work project right now because I have more capacity? Simple things like this, the more open people get.
Wow. I like that. It's calls to more humanity. So a little, I was going to say a little odd in a cutthroat in a cutthroat workplace where everyone's striving for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's also, I guess, the emphasis to also be changing.
And I'm not saying, I mean, I come from real estate, so I know the cutthroat like world. It's everyone has their own commission and is like very focused on making that. So I see that. I'm not saying you have to all be friends, but yeah, just being kind to each other.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
absolutely. And I do feel that there could be more of that. I feel that in the workplaces we don't promote friendship, like a genuine kind of connection. So I do really like that comment. I want to take you somewhere. So
Mhm.
to remove the negativity on the blood. What is the blood? What is it made of? Is it normal blood? Is there something about it? Does there what is it? Is it just blood? Is there tell us what is happening? What is
It's
going on?
it's actually pretty amazing if you think about it. So the uterine lining is building up every month. So if you like in menstruation, of course, it just has been shed. So it starts very low and it starts to build up to prepare for a potential pregnancy. So this like uterine lining will become the placenta later if the egg has been fertilized. And if that didn't happen, the body's realizing that and just shedding it. So it's a mixture of actually tissue, like it's actually tissue that we kind of that you have like sometimes like small blood clumps. That's also totally normal if they're not too big. So it's tissue, it is blood because of course the uterine lining has been attached to the inner line of the uterus. So with that being released, there's also blood coming out, and then there's just also like other vaginal fluids. So it's a mixture of all that.
Lovely. So it's not from space.
It's not from space. No, it's not from that. It actually part of it gets reabsorbed. Like in a lot of animals, it gets reabsorbed. It's just for the human body, it's too much to be reabsorbed. That's why we bleed it out.
Mm. Okay, okay. So another change of gear. How did you get interested in all this?
Um, it was it was very personal, to be honest. It started a couple years ago when in my work I just started to experience a lot of stress, and with that stress came a lot of health issues that just came from that psychological stress I was experiencing. And it started with stomach issues that were unexplained. I didn't know where it was coming from. It got to the point where it didn't matter what I ate, I had a stomach ache afterwards. So that was very frustrating, of course.
Yeah.
And then a doctor said maybe it's gluten intolerance, maybe it's not, but he's not sure. So they didn't really know what was going on. And with that, I also had irregular cycles. I have come off the hormonal IUD like a year before, but when this like whole thing started, but my cycle has been kind of regular before, and it just got worse. Plus, I had, I think, the worst PMS. I was, like you said, I've never been full. I ate so much, and I was craving so many things. My skin changed, and I've had issues with my skin before, but even my skin changed, and I got pimples, and I was just on an emotional roller coaster, I would say, to the point where my husband said, I'm worried about you. Like, you have to change something. Like, please quit your job. Like, he wasn't forcing me to just quit because he said, I cannot see you like this anymore. And that was kind of like him showing me my mirror image that I'm not myself anymore.
Yeah.
And then this whole process started. Okay, I want to do something different. I've always been very interested in the health aspect, how you can treat yourself like in a holistic way with yoga, meditation, movement. All those things have been always very interesting to me. And of course, my friends knew that I was going kind of, I was in that transition. And then I read my first period related book because I found it online, and that just changed my world, I guess. That was like kind of the spark that came like, this, you can do this. And at the same time, I've heard of a friend that a friend of hers is working as a menstrual cycle coach. And in
Oh.
that moment, it was so clear to me, like, I didn't know that's a job, but I want to do it. And yeah.
Beautiful.
So from there, it took me like a year to just do some research, read books, listen to podcasts, basically everything. And then a year later, I started my first training. And then that fall, same year, I started my second training. Yeah.
Beautiful. That sounds really good. It sounds like a calling, if I put it that way.
Felt like it.
Yeah, nice. Because they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So not so
True.
much by coincidence that this book happened to cross your path. No.
I don't think so either. So.
Lovely. Lovely. And I mean, because I had, well, I don't know if I still have it, PCOS. I can't remember what it's, polycystic something, something.
PCOS.
Yes, PCOS.
Mhm.
Because so yeah, so from that perspective, I've never really had the regular periods, and then from that, it had never been an issue for me. Just this, I I came to think of I came to think of the whole cycle and feminine processes separate from me, and I understand that there is an interesting proportion of people who have the same condition. it was something like 10%. I can't remember, but the numbers were much bigger than I thought that they would be. So I'd like you to touch a little on cycles, their differences between different women, and whether a lack of cycle means that you're not going through this I'll call it a cycle. I don't know what to call it.
Those
This
hormonal fluctuations, basically. But yeah, it is a cycle. You're going through that cycle.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of health issues, and they're actually becoming more like
Mm,
PCOS, like you had, or endometriosis, which is also in the news a bit more now. And it's amazing that now there's more, like more people look at it because then there's also more research for it. So
yeah.
that is great that people actually focus on it more. But because of our, I would say, environment, because of pollution, all those things, those conditions actually increase, which is sad to
Mm,
hear. Also, with how we consume foods, like all the processed foods, we're just too many people for the planet. So if we always just buy the, like the ready to eat dishes, it's not good for your body. There's no nutrients in it. So things like this kind of make us sicker if you think
okay.
about it. Um, and with your question, so every person, like I said, is individual. But with the cycle, what happens, what actually is important, or what is a vital like health sign, is if you ovulate or not.
Mm,
Because your period can, of course, your period will happen because the uterine lining will build up because of the rise of estrogen. Estrogen
mm,
signals the body, okay, build up your new uterine lining for the new cycle. But what is really important is to know if we have ovulated or not. And how we can track that, if you want to, you can measure your temperature. Because with that, I'm not sure, have you heard of NFP?
no.
It is called naturally family planning.
Okay.
And you can use that. It's hormone free contraception. I use that
Mhm.
for years and I love it. And what basically happens is that with that rise of progesterone, your, like I said, your metabolism increases. And with that, also your body temperature increases.
Okay.
So natural family planning is either used to become pregnant or avoid being pregnant. Either way, how you choose to, because then you can kind of detect that fertile window with it. Saying,
Okay.
okay, you can track your temperature, then you know after the temperature has risen that the ovulation has happened. And this is the important thing for all of us, that we know this. And then we can also track is your cervical mucus, because this also changes, and basically the body's just everything getting ready for that egg to be fertilized. So we
Okay.
can, this is how we can track this fertile window.
Mm,
And once we, I guess, know this and understand what is happening, it can also be added with tracking emotions, like you said, or cravings, just to get a better understanding of how our body functions.
I love that. I love that. I want to take you to something that we've been just to retackle something.
Mhm.
Hormones. So they are not the enemy.
No, they're very vital actually for us.
Yeah. So the point you're saying is to learn how to work with them, not so much to try and change what is happening, but to try and fit our lives and our activities and how it is that we're taking things from a day-to-day perspective based on the hormonal happenings within our own body.
100%. So they're not the enemy. They're actually, they let our body function. Like hormones are little messengers, if you wanted to, for example, the brain sends hormones to other parts in the brain or also to your organs directly, signaling the organs, okay, it's time to do this now.
Okay.
And this is not only the sexual hormones, but like I mentioned before, also cortisol, melatonin, for us to wake up and to get sleep. It, like, there's so many hormones that affect us.
Uh-huh.
But if we think of those sexual, like sex hormones that kind of like that influence the cycle, it is important to understand, I think, when each hormone peaks and what is like triggered by it and what happens with it. And then also how your body changes. Things like understanding, okay, I have a higher need of calorie intake in the second half, or I naturally maybe shouldn't do a HIIT workout during my menstruation because with that low of hormones and my body physically bleeding, losing iron, losing things, it's not so wise to overstrain your body.
Yeah.
So with understanding those things, you can actually work. like support your hormones in a way and integrate it also in your day. Like for example, or just to give a brief example, I plan my month in accordance with my cycle. And of course, I can do that because I'm self-employed. But even when I was still working in corporate, I always put a period blocker in my calendar and a couple days
Nice.
before. So I would know, okay, if I'm in my high ovulation phase, saying yes to everything because I just love to meet people, I'm seeing it in my calendar and realizing, no, I'm not going to meet you there. I'm going to have some me time. And if I feel like meeting
Mm.
people that day spontaneously, I can still do that. But I'm just, kind of finding ways to implement that for myself.
Beautiful. And I feel like that as women, we need to give ourselves permission to do this. We, especially as women, feel that we're trying to fit into this man's world, that things are already the way they are. So allowing ourselves to even just taking a day off the gym, forget even the office, taking a day off the gym because your body doesn't feel like it, whether it be energetic or it's not so much the self-sabotage, but uh, the hormonal or the cyclical messaging that this is not the time for us to be doing this, to allow ourselves to get away from these very rigid setups that maybe we found ourselves put in, but find something that works for us. I do feel that that's super important. And as you said, I mean, I was also in the corporate world, and part of what I did is sometimes I'd realize that I do not feel like working. And it took a lot of forgiveness within myself because I mean, this is working time. What do you mean you don't feel like working? Because what I'd end up doing is spending 7 hours to do something that I should have done in 30 minutes. So then when I gave myself that grace, then what I could do is then if I feel that that I this time that I wasn't working, I can put it back at a time when I do feel like working. Because sometimes I would be very energetic and be able to do a lot of things within a shorter period of time. So allowing yourself to play that game, even with your time, even within the corporate space. We learned that from COVID. Well, I learned that from COVID. But sometimes you don't need to work strictly within the 9 to 5. Allow yourself to be flexible as a woman in the workplace. Yeah.
That's the goal, I would say. And of course, I understand that it's not always possible because let's be honest, life gets in the way. People
Yeah.
have kids, animals, I don't know, have like important meetings, work trips. So it does happen.
Yeah.
But I think the better we are, like you said, prepared and understand what is going on and when we can support ourselves, then we can make this work as well. Because if we're drained throughout the whole month, then, like I mentioned earlier before, like this energy high that you get, you don't experience that as you should experience it because your body is just still strained from the cycle before and before. So it's like a little ripple effect as well. The more we are stressed, the more we don't take care of ourselves, the less nourishing meals we have. All those things affect us, and it will not be gone from one day of the other.
Wow. I had never thought of it as having a ripple effect. That's scary. Because that means, yeah, if you don't take care of it over time, then it becomes, bigger
Mhm.
and bigger and more
And then we get
problematic.
used to the small issues, like having PMS, and then we're kind of like, it's okay. I'm just, I'm getting my period tomorrow. We make excuses ourselves, like it's like I know I'm a bit annoying right now, whatever. Like I heard so many women say this, and PMS it happens to many women, but it shouldn't happen because it's a natural sign that there is an underlying reason that something is off.
Wow. I thought it was a natural thing that happened.
Well, it is kind of natural, but it's not as forced kind of to
Okay.
it,
Yeah.
So it's your body saying, okay, something is off, and that doesn't mean that you have like more hunger in like the second part, of course, because that's just naturally what happens. But having those extreme cravings, having those emotional roller coasters, all these things are just like I used to sometimes just cry for no reason. I was like, why am I crying? I didn't even know why. And I was so frustrated. It was like, what nothing has happened. This is not natural. This is not healthy, let's put it this way. And this shows just should show yourself, okay, something is off.
I think a lot of women can relate to that. We just feeling in Kenya, in Swahili, we say nasikia sijui aje, which means I feel I don't know how.
Yep,
And it's
that's
just that.
perfect.
It's this, yeah. Ah, okay. So being able to look more into our cycle would maybe give us hints on what's going on within ourselves. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Okay.
Because then you can also track patterns, if you realize, okay, on day 15 I always feel this, or I'm in this phase or this time frame, I'm more tired, like you can kind of understand what your body needs.
Okay. Do you have a guidance on how to track? Do you have how should people track their cycles?
So I have a cycle tracker, like a freebie. I can send the link to you afterwards if you'd like to.
Like, mm,
And it just gives a brief overview of each phase and what is happening. And then there's like a little draft. I separated because I like that you can track your period and your cervical mucus in just one column. And showing that over 3 months just to see how it changes, maybe if your period is shorter or longer, and also to detect that fertile window to realize, okay, I potentially have ovulated. I have this, and then I have the second table is basically a mixture of how I feel emotionally, physically, and also nutritionally. So, am I craving sweets? Am I craving carbs? Things like this. Was I bloated? And then all those other things, and also the stress factor I added, and love. I have a love section. It's if you track your libido, go for it. If you track your self love, either way. But yeah, I do this every day in the evening. I just take a couple minutes to just sit down and actually tune into myself and see how was my day and just write it down. And that gave me a lot of knowledge because I tracked over the past, I don't know, year and a half or so, just to
wow.
see, okay, how is my body changing?
I absolutely love that because the tracking I do now is a bit more haphazard. I use an app. There's an app I use, but I think I'm not very faithful to it.
Well, the
I
app,
often actually just track, especially I track extremes. The day I was really feeling, as opposed to small, small things. So thank you for that. Is that something that you're okay with me sharing with the audience here?
of course, I can really share
Perfect.
with you that I'm happy that people start tracking and understand their body better.
Hey.
And I mean,
Yeah.
the app is great. I use the app too, just also in that combination. But the app has, of course, also the analytics, behind all the other users saying, okay, when could be your potential new period, your potential fertile window, all these things. But what, like you said, you track extremes. I heard a couple of my clients say, I just used to track my period. That's all I
Yeah.
track. No, and that's a start. It's good.
Yeah.
But to understand yourself, you actually need to realize, okay, there's more to the period or more to the cycle than just the period.
Yeah. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I think it's really true. For we older women, for the women who are now moving more towards the age of perimenopause or menopause, there's a bit of a stress factor of periods what's the word, the cycle change in length,
Mm-hmm.
or missing a period or stuff like that, because
Mm-hmm.
then you start getting very stressed, and the app is always there asking me, so, and then now how do you feel, what happened, have you bled, have you so it's really good, but I do think that having this alternative version that is less stress free, that is more stress free, because the conversation I had with that girl is sometimes it can be very, you start blaming yourself, like there's something wrong
Mm-hmm.
with, because you were meant to have a 28-day cycle, you do not, there's something wrong with you. So I do think that the alternative of just putting it in yourself can be very calming.
Of course, and it's for you, like putting it to pen and paper is just intimate, I guess. It's more
Yeah.
like private, and I like that. And same with like perimenopause and menopause, right? We expect women in the workspace to just go through it and just never talk about it. But
Yeah.
there's also, like you said, women blame themselves when they're not like fit into that ideal cycle length. Because then once we would start talking about this and say, hey, what is actually happening, maybe it's also showing more support that it is a big emotional change. Because if you think
Mhm.
about it, with the word is menarche, when you start your period, so your first bleed is your menarche. So it's kind
Okay.
of when your organs, or like fertility organs, start to work, I guess, and produce the first time. This is like a big change because the brain is rewiring, the whole body is changing, because now we have those other hormones that affect us so much.
Okay.
And with menopause, that stops again. So we have had this long period of having those monthly cycles, and then this kind of fades out and disappears. And with that, of course, come a lot of changes, because then suddenly testosterone is playing also a role, because it's still lower than in men, of course. But then we have testosterone, which is there, and maybe less estrogen and less progesterone, and things like this can really influence us.
Yeah, yeah, make it. And you've said something important that I think I'll just highlight a little bit, that even for the young girls who are now entering into this process, it is also quite a change for them. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So they also need some kind of support too. And I don't know what the practice is nowadays. I presume that there is much more openness for parents talking to their children, but I'm really not sure, because it is still a very negative, thing. So, what guidance do you have there?
Honestly, I'm not sure how it is. I mean, it's been a while since I had my first period as well, and I don't remember of my mom telling me much about it. We spoke a little bit, but I know she was supportive in a way that when it happened, because it happened overnight, and I bled the bed, and it was just a whole like thing for me, and I
Yeah,
felt very uncomfortable to this very moment. Um, and I really would hope that people start talking in schools about it, like teachers actually teaching more about it, because of course, we had kind of that sex aid in school, but all I remember is this is a tampon, this is if you put it in water, this is how big
yeah.
it gets. That's it. It's like that's what I remember from that talk, like nothing more about it. Maybe that was more, but just nothing that kind of like stick to it. And I think with that more awareness of our generation, of then us becoming parents, I think then the change will come. But like we spoke earlier, like we never spoke about it. My mom didn't know. She didn't know what was going on. So she didn't tell me, not because she wanted to hide something, but because she wasn't taught. So I think it's kind of slowly starting to change.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm enjoying this conversation. It's so important, and you're such a beautiful energy. So lovely to have this conversation with you.
I'm happy to be here and speak about it. I love speaking about it.
Yeah. Where can people find you before I forget? If someone has been listening to you and thinking this is exactly what I need a coach on this topic, how do they get you?
So I am on Instagram at vanessamartin.fem. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. And this is where people can find me right now. I'm building my website. It should be ready in a couple weeks, hopefully, maybe sooner. Let's see.
Yeah.
But that's it for now, how you can find me.
Good.
And if I share my cycle tracker with you, there's also my socials on there.
Perfect. I'll put it I'll link it in this video. And is there something else that we should touch on, an important aspect that we haven't looked at yet, or something you just want to mention?
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's a very good question. It was very interesting to talk to you. Um, I think one thing, because it's been a very big thing for me in my own journey, um, like love yourself and be kind to yourself.
Oh,
Because if we don't speak about our issues, we feel so alone and we blame ourselves because we cannot function like our partners or friends around us in that specific, it's a lot of blame comes from within, I think. And one big thing I had to learn is just love myself for who I am and just be kind. Like how you speak to your body matters. Yeah. And I heard
so
this beautiful thing that you should, if you imagine how you would speak with your best friend, speak to yourself like you would speak to her. Because you would never blame her for stupid things, If she was tired, you wouldn't blame her for being tired. So
oh,
just speak to her like your best friend. And I love
yeah, that's really. And if you have a really strange relationship with your best friend, speak to her as you would a child.
that. Do that too. Yes. Whoever you love, speak to them like whoever you love.
No, beautiful. Thank you so much, Vanessa. You're a ray of sunshine. Thank you for sharing your time with us, sharing your knowledge with us. And I don't know, I wish you well in spreading the message. Yeah,
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here, really.
appreciate you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening in, and reach out to Vanessa and learn more about this super important topic. And let's talk about it, as she says. Let's not be in a corner quietly thinking that this is a terrible thing. Women make 50% of the population. We are all going through this, so let's make it something to talk about. Thank you all. Bye bye.